Hey everyone, hope you are doing great. Welcome to today's webinar AI powered ITIL What's Changing and What's Not. I am Harshad, your host for today, and I'm excited to have you all here. We will keep this session insightful and extractive, so feel free to drop your thoughts in the Q&A. Before we begin, a quick intro to Knowlathon. Knowlathon is a global IT training provider helping professionals build lasting career with certification like ITIL, PMP, Prince2, and many more. With over a decade of experience, we are accredited by PeopleCert, PMI, ISACA, Exim, and many more, ensuring our clients receive globally recognized certification. Now, let's talk about our expert leading today's discussion, Mr. Robert. With 30 plus years of experience, he has helped organizations worldwide implement AI-driven ITSM strategies and to stay ahead in the evolving IT landscape. So, Mr. Robert, let's get straight to the to in AI redefining ITL or just making it smarter. Over to you, Robert.
Many thanks, Harash, for that very kind introduction. Let me just move on to the next slide. Basically, this is the agenda for today. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about each different subject here. Basically, we're going to start off with ITIL and AI and how they complement each other, and how with the next versions of ITIL that are just being developed now, how we're bringing more AI possibilities into the ITIL framework. We're also going to look at the opportunities for enhancing the value co-creation process that AI gives us. One of the key things within ITIL is the service value chain and the service value system. And we can see how AI helps us address those two issues and improves the value co-creation process. We're going to look at some challenges with AI. There are quite a few, actually. It's not all plain sailing, not all roses in the garden, as it were, but there are some issues with AI as it is now that need to be addressed and how they can be addressed. We'll also then look at the service desk and how that can be improved with AI, and how some of the things that you've probably already seen, like chatbots, how they can help improve the interaction with the customers, but also how they can help improve the actual ticket flow. And then we'll end up with a discussion. Hopefully with a few of you, we can then discuss a few of the issues and finalize with a Q&A. I trust that sounds okay. Oops. Okay. So I presume you all know what ITIL is, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library that's been around since the early 1990s, and it is a framework for IT service management. I'm now an ITIL master, so I've been living and breathing ITIL for the past, well, nearly 30 years, more years than I'd like to remember sometimes. And it has a series of, ITIL has a series of different processes in it, which I'm sure some of us are familiar with. You've got service request management, you've got incident management, problem management, change management, all these different processes that in some organizations are very manual, but can be automated. We've seen lots of different tools come on the marketplace over the past 30 odd years that do incremental steps to improve these processes. But what we've got with AI is something a bit more intelligent in terms of automating those repetitive tasks, predicting issues, and improving your decision making. If we look at AI-driven incident management, what AI can do is actually pass your emails and the chats, review how those emails are coming in, and actually also in some cases verbal interactions, just listening to people on the phone, and it can generate and direct the incidents. So it actually create the incident based on the email or the chat or the conversation, and it can then send that incident to the correct second or third level team to resolve it, or can in fact address that incident itself directly. Another way AI can help us is within ITIL, we often talk about an incident manager and a problem manager, these people who are responsible for looking at all the incident tickets, all the problem tickets that are coming through the service desk, and seeing if we can spot any trends, so that therefore we can reduce the amount of incidents around that particular trend. Say, for instance, it's we get an awful lot of password resets on a Monday morning because people are coming back from holidays. That is something people generally know about, and they put in place mitigation for that to remind people about not, how to address resetting their password. But AI can get look deeper into the whole batch of incident tickets, problem tickets that one has received in the service desk over a long period of time, and can see trends within those incidents and make some predictive analytics in terms of problem management and things that we may need to address, that a human eye scanning through thousands of incident tickets wouldn't necessarily be able to see. We can drive change management with more intelligent reviews of that change, of our changes that are going into our production environment. As we're moving more into like an agile and DevOps way of working, we want to see, we want to smooth and improve our change management process so we can review that change quicker, more intelligently. We can make sure that we can release into the production environment and then deploy to the relevant sites using AI to make those reviews, spot anomalies, and help us make sure that we don't put any change into production that doesn't fulfill the appropriate criteria. We can move from reactive service management to proactive service management. By proactive, spotting things going wrong, spotting things before they actually go wrong, before they actually have an impact, and making sure that we can make those corrective actions. We've had for a very long time monitoring tools that will review our infrastructure and see what's happening, and we can then generate events that will then generate incidents that then get addressed by a human being. But with AI, you can give it the rule set in order to take those events and automatically resolve them before they become an issue. This is the approach that Microsoft with its cloud services and Amazon Web Services are also taking. So they're making sure that that the service they provide to their client base is actually seamless. Their clients don't actually see any issues with their web or cloud provided services, because they're using these intelligent tools that they've trained over a period of time in order to resolve the issues before they actually have an impact on services. I talked a little earlier about what we were going to do in terms of opportunities for enhancing the value co-creation process. Some of you who's got, maybe put your hands up if you've actually come across ITIL's service value system or service value chain. Any of you ever seen that before? I'll give you a moment to respond. Maybe. Well, I hope you have, because I'm sure some of you are actually ITIL trained. So you have seen the whole idea going from an opportunity or a demand to actually creating value, and how you would go through the service value system, looking at the governance, looking at continual improvement, seeing how you go from opportunity and demand to making a decision of whether or not to build or buy something, or move it into how you're going to design it, how you're actually going to then deploy that into your production environment, so that that generates value for your customers. And ITIL, an AI can enhance value co-creation by looking at certain things like more personalized service experiences. Some of the early chatbots were very sort of, well, robotic and not well suited for interactions with human beings. But now we're getting to a stage where we have GPT, so a generative pre-trained transformer. That's what ChatGTP means. It's a large language model. We've had large language models for a long time, but it's using a deep learning process to generate human-like text. You can take it. What it's doing is it's creating new content. That's the generative part of it, and you can pre-train it. One of the things I'm doing at the moment is I'm working with PeopleCert and a company in the USA to actually take the PeopleCert information and train it to answer based on all the material that PeopleCert have for ITIL and for prints, and get it to address more common human-like language, so we can train it how to answer those questions. Can be trained on these vast amounts of all the documents that and material that people have in their library, and we can use like the neural network architecture, something that's been around again for quite some time, to actually transform it to understand and generate a better language response, so that you're actually receiving something that sounds more human. These tools are also very quick, so you're getting real-time insights and recommendations, and this way it also, because you're getting the robot to actually the chatbot to actually answer some of these more common questions, you're getting better resource allocation. So what GPT is really clever at doing is natural language processing. So it's not rules based as such. It can learn patterns. It can learn the context, the relationship in massive data set that allows them to generate contextually appropriate responses. You can tell a chatbot something about yourself, and it will answer you in what it thinks, or the way you'd like it to answer. So you can have it answering in a very professional environment, a very informal environment, and somewhere in between. So in the past, you may have seen very much rules-based intelligent machines, like Deep Blue, that could play chess against grandmasters and beat them. But that's all that's doing is using an awful lot of computing power to generate all the different possible options and then examine what the most appropriate one is. Whereas what generative AIs do is they're actually creating natural language responses that are more appropriate. So you get a faster, smarter, more customer-centric experience. Some of these chatbots that you can't actually, they're passing to a certain extent the Turing test. You can't actually identify whether or not the person who's answering you is a human being or is actually a robot. We do. It's not all sunshine in the garden though, because we do have some challenges. Any of these AI engines, they all rely on data. So, and as we know, with any sort of process like this, if you put junk in, you're going to get junk out. It relies on very high quality data. Any poor quality data is going to lead to inaccurate outcomes. Junk in, junk out. It's pretty obvious. But I mean, that's the same with human beings as well. You can teach human beings incorrect things. If you don't tell them how to add up properly, they won't be able to add up properly. They don't have the right data and algorithms to actually process this stuff. They're not really going to help that well. There were some ethical concerns and biases in algorithms and decision making. I don't know whether you've ever come across this, but there's an acronym, WEIRD, that is used in sociology to discuss what some of the problems that sociologists have with generating some of their ideas and models. What tends to happen, and has happened in the past, is that these guys, they're very much working in Western Europe, in the Americas. They're very much based on European ideas. It's very much an industrialized society, you know, Western Europe. They're quite wealthy compared with the rest of the world. And we would say that they were quite well developed. They got very good infrastructure, lots of high quality of life there. So this is summarized in an acronym: WEIRD, Western, European, industrialized, rich, and developed. And the world isn't like that. The world isn't all based around that weird idea. You know, there's an awful lot of cultural differences between Europe and East Asia, the Indian subcontinent, Africa. Everybody's got a slightly different way of looking at the world, and not one of them's right, not one of them's wrong. But if all your people who are generating, using generative pre-trained transformations, these chat GTPs, are all based in the West, they're not going to produce appropriate responses, culturally appropriate responses for anywhere else in the world. I mean, they need to look at that bias in those algorithms and start looking at it a bit more intelligently and more holistically. It's quite difficult to actually then, even though you have an issue with complexity in trying to integrate the processes that your existing ITIL processes and some of the tools to then produce some sort of seamless handoff. Where you're looking at things like service request management, they're quite simple. They're quite, you can build a service catalog, you can get an AI to read the requests that come in, get it to read the service request catalog, pick an appropriate catalog item and generate the appropriate service actions in order to satisfy that request. But when you get to more complex areas, such as analysing problem data, it becomes a bit more of an issue. Some of the issues that you also have are with that actual handoff to human beings. I've seen occasions where a customer has interacted with a chatbot and got very frustrated, and the chatbot has thought they had the right answer, hands it off to the service desk so that they can then deal with that human being. And the human being is completely frustrated. That customer is completely frustrated with the way the chatbot's actually been talking to it. And you know, the last thing you want is an angry customer and made angry by a poorly built chatbot. So we need to have within the AI, the tool that we're using to generate our chatbots, it needs to have clear escalation paths. If it doesn't quite understand what it's doing, perhaps it should be empowering the human agents quicker than trying to make some sort of maybe educated guess. We need to embed some form of empathy into its interactions, introducing more emotional intelligence into the natural language processing of the AI, emphasizing a more personalized communication, trying to get the AI to act more like a human being on the end of a telephone, to ask, you know, how are you today? Where do you live? What sort of day are you having today? So you can produce more empathetic interactions, get it to recognize the responses. What sort of day are you having today? Absolutely awful day, thank you very much, because I can't get this service to work. And for it to, you know, pass on rather than go, okay, let me help you with that, but rather than saying, let me help you with that, but I understand, have more empathy. I understand. Yes, that can be an issue. I do feel sorry for you in your situation. So you can build more emotional intelligence into your chatbots. And of course, well, this is quite clever. It does come at quite a initial investment, and also it comes at quite a cost of actually running these natural language models. They have to have an awful lot of computing power behind them in order to work efficiently. It has, to a certain extent, you see some of this in the press, that AI is actually using up more CO2 because of the amount of computing power that it's actually using than the benefit it's actually giving. It might be cheaper to actually use human beings rather than this AI, because this thing, you don't have to pay it, you don't have to feed it, you don't have to house it. Well, you do have to house it because you have to put it into a computer center. It has to be somewhere, and it is. And you do feed it in a certain extent because it's going to use an awful lot of electricity, which is then an awful lot of CO2. So basically, what I'm trying to say is we need robust governance around the way we train, the data we give it, and the way we train AIs. We need to keep monitoring this and not just let it run away. And we need to embed more empathy into its interactions, making sure it becomes less robotic, more human-like. Otherwise, people are just not going to be want to use it. Let me just have a slurp of tea. So with ITIL, we all know that the service desk is a critical component of ITIL. It is the single point of contact. It is the place that generates an awful lot of knowledge about any incidents and problems that are coming through. It is therefore the single point of truth. They will have some form of knowledge database where that stores information about their incidents, problems, and changes and the whole configuration of the environment they're working with. And AI can help revolutionize service desk, make things a lot easier for your service desk agents. Not replace the service desk agents, but make things easier for them, because you're still going to need human beings in that process. So some of the things we talked about a little bit earlier, we talked about how AIs can actually pass emails, chats, and in some cases verbal interactions to generate and direct incidents to the correct area of the service desk or vendors, suppliers, to resolve an incident that's coming in. I don't know whether any of you ever used it, but there's quite a few now AI tools that will attend your meeting, your Teams meeting or Zoom or Google Meet, whichever one it is, and just talk with your counterparty, and then it will automatically generate a list of what you talked about and what the action points were and who needs to do what at the end of it. These sort of things you can then put into your interactions with a human agent, with a human customer, and it will collate what needs to be done, generate the relevant service requests or incidents or problem tickets, and then that can be processed a lot quicker. We talked about chatbots and how they can provide self-service options. Sometimes those menus are a bit too structured and difficult to navigate through, and please tell me this, please tell me that, please. So we need to make the chatbots, as I say, more empathetic and recognize demographic and regional differences and generate the appropriate response. We can train these chatbots to encompass regional differences, regional demographics. The way I, as an older gentleman, would ask a chatbot a question is completely different from the way one of my children or even one of my grandchildren might ask a chatbot a question. They're just going to have completely different interactions. How I talk to the chatbot is different from how my wife would talk to the chatbot. I'm an Englishman in Germany. I have a certain cultural background. An Englishman of my same age who didn't have the same background as me in the north of England will talk to the chatbot in a completely different way and will expect for it to answer in a completely different way. These things have to have a bit more empathy and be able to recognize those regional and demographic distances. One of the elements that we talk about here then is offering predictive solutions based on historical data. This is nothing new. If any of us have ever worked on a service desk, there's always the clever guy who's there. He's been on the service desk for years and he knows everything. He knows the complete environment. He knows everything there is to know about that organization, what the best way of resolving any sort of service request is, what the best way of resolving any incident. They just know because they've been there for so long. Well, AI can do that in a way by just analysing all the service tickets and seeing how they've been resolved, and then be able to work out the best response based on the most successful, quickest tickets that are being resolved. Now, obviously, that only works if your historical data of recording those incidents is of a good quality. As I said before, junk in, junk out. But overall, I mean, while those are some of the problems, you should see reduced or you will see, reduced resolution times and improved user satisfaction as we improve the quality of the trained data. We're still in very, very early days of AI. They've only just, started to be trained in the last 4 or 5 years. We're going to see massive improvements over a period of time. So I was hoping some of you might come off mute now and engage in a discussion. And I've got some questions up there. Is anybody interested in doing that? Maybe Harash, Arshad, would you like to have a chat with me, discussion on how we can get organizations to balance AI automation?
Yeah, we can continue. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, one of the issues, I don't know what you think, is it's a balance of AI against the human touch. People are used to human beings talking to, or in the past have been used to talking to human beings and having that interaction with somebody. And as I say, one of the issues with AI is some of the older versions have been very structured questions on chatbots. Has anybody ever come across that before, where you try to talk into a chatbot and it's very structured? It's and
Yeah. We have a Q&A
you think
feature.
you'll be able to understand what you want and go further forward quicker.
Yeah, Robert, we have a Q&A feature. So they will ask question in Q&A.
Oh, Q&A. Okay, I'll bring the Q&A up on my screen now.
Okay. So participants, if you have any questions, please ask in the Q&A box.
Maybe I can start a discussion off. Can I? Okay. Oh. So what do we think the biggest risk is of AI integration into service management? Has anybody got any thoughts on that? How that might prove to be a bit problematic? What do you think are the most obvious pitfalls? Do feel free to answer that question. Oh, it's coming in. Okay, I can answer Sharada's question. How can organization balance AI automation with the human touch? One of the initial things that we've done with AI is more sort of on the back end, the less human centric things. If you may have heard of an ITSM tool provider called ServiceNow. They've invested an awful lot in generating AI-based workflow tools that will integrate lots of different types of systems over quite a large landscape and get them to generate low code or even no code responses to what it receives, so it can pass requests through the whole landscape of a company and pass the request on, receive the response, pass that response on. So you will have organizations where they have like an ERP system, like SAP, that is generating a procurement request that then has to go to an IT department to then build that machine, and then has to get moved into or delivered to a human being. And you can use the ServiceNow workflow tool to use natural language processing to actually take the information from that ERP system through the service desk system and generate a notification to the user to come and pick up their new laptop, for instance. So we talked about what best practices there might be for aligning IT services with business objects or integrating AI with the existing frameworks. And we talked a lot about what I did about the problem of these things being generated and trained in sort of in the West and not understanding different demographic differences. So if you're training it, or the people training it are Western European educated and relatively wealthy people, they're going to generate one set of responses that's not going to be appropriate across the world. Do we have any thoughts on that? I was hoping to get a bit more interaction out of you guys. Do you have any thoughts on that, Harshad?
Yeah, yeah, so we can continue with this session.
Okay, well, perhaps moving on. I think we move directly onto a Q&A if you've got any questions.
Yeah, if they have any questions, they will add the Q&A question in the Q&A box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm coming to the conclusion. I think AI has a potential to revolutionise ITIL and ITSM, but it does require careful planning and careful execution. So we can address the possibilities and embrace those possibilities while addressing what those challenges are. And I hope I've elaborated on some of the possibilities and some of the challenges that we're going to encounter. And that I'm going to leave it open to anybody who wants to ask any questions, and I'm here for your to respond to those.
Yeah, so guys, participants, if you have any question, feel free to use a Q&A feature. We will address your questions.
Well, I mean, if there's no questions, I think we can come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I think there is no question from our participants. So I think maybe we can wrap up. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Robert, for simplifying ITL and AI for us today. And of course, thank you all for joining and making this session interactive. Before we wrap up, I want to ask who's feeling more confident about navigating AI in ITL now? Drop your reactions. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out. Our team is happy to help you. If you are considering ITL for foundation certification, we offer a top tier training help you get certified. And I have shared the website link for details. So thank you guys for joining us. And if you have any questions, you can connect with us, our team. Our Knowlathon team will guide you, or Knowlathon team will help you about this. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks very much. Okay,
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
bye.
Bye.